How come students that live in Western countries rarely if ever attend prestigious, highly selective universities in non-Western countries like Japan, China, or South Korea? Because most of the prestige is 100 local, and the schools are middle of the road on an international scale. So why would people learn a foreign language to fight tooth and nail to get into a school that isn't even the best foreign school to go to? Not worth the effort. Me, a Norwegian who attended one of South Korea's most prestigious universities, reading this, it could be a mixture of cities like London, Paris, or New York, being imperial cores historically speaking and thus attracting talent from foreign nations much like ancient Rome. And the fact that for most of the last century, China was in a civil war which led up to a tyrannical dictatorship. Korea was colonized by Japan, then split into two dictatorships competing on who can violate more human rights than the other, and Japan playing that same game with the British Empire then nuked. Wouldn't surprise me if people like me become more common over the coming decades. In a lot of Asian countries, there's just a few top universities, and in order to get in, you'll need to test well on the entrance exam. The competition is insane in the same way not every American can go to Harvard. Nice thing about America at the collegiate level is that there's just a ton of colleges public-private. Obviously there are good ones and bad ones, but there's plenty of pretty decent ones that offer prestige and quality education. Biggest challenge in the US isn't getting into a good school, it's figuring out how to pay for it. Networking. You can get an education at any college. Everyone wants to go to Western universities because the richest people go there. Western kids don't speak Mandarin. You might also ask how much effort those schools are putting into recruiting smart kids from Western countries. They are on the other side of the globe for Europe, so pretty far away, and there are plenty of good universities much closer. I assume the East Asian students who move to study in the West already know the Latin alphabet and probably English too, while not many Europeans know Japanese, Korean, Mandarin, or Cantonese. The only foreign universities that are generally known in the US are Oxford and Cambridge. It wasn't until the end of my time in college I thought to look up what the top colleges in Canada are, because I've never heard of any of them, and I had some professors from Canada. It's McGill. I couldn't tell you what the top colleges in Australia are, and this is the English-speaking world. The only other foreign university that ever gets named in the US is the London School of Economics. American HR departments don't know how to handle non-American college degrees. If you need to get some sort of license or accreditation in the US as part of the career you want to have, those are generally set up based on American degrees. Not many people in the US speak those languages. Going international for college is really expensive. If we're in America, it's basically disfavorable to seek a career outside of the US because in the US pay is higher and taxes and cost of living are lower than other countries. This is about regular people who get college degrees and have regular careers in industry. If you want to work in academia, be a professor yourself, or you're some sort of world-level specialist, that's a whole different world as far as going international goes. For Canadian citizens, a degree from overseas presents huge challenges when looking for work in Canada. It could be a huge waste if the professional association does not accept the degree. Which Gaokao dropouts are going to prestigious schools in the West? It's extremely difficult for Chinese to get into the top schools, much less a Gaokao dropout. Because we have some of the best institutions here, at least in terms of reputation. There's a reason all the oligarchs around the world send their kids to Harvard and Yale and MIT. Also, things are taught in English, which is an advantage whether or not you speak English as a native tongue, because it's the contemporary language franca. They are prestigious only in their own neighborhood to speak, i.e. they're part of the world. I do not know of any universities in these places as their alumni are only relevant there, versus a place like Harvard or Yale, or even Texas A&M, which is relevant throughout the world. Competition, generally lacking language skills, and the few students that could go to these high-end schools will almost certainly be better off studying at Western schools that know the word over. Because they neither speak Korean nor Japanese nor Chinese. Chinese people go to uni in foreign countries as a means to move away from China. Probably language barrier, or they simply aren't as prestigious as Western schools. I don't really know. I'd have to spend 5–6 years learning the language before I could even try to go to a college somewhere else, and I wouldn't have need for the language the instant I returned to the US. It's significantly easier for me to just get into a prestigious school that already teaches in English. Can't speak for Asian universities, but I knew some smart Latino kids, and if they knew Spanish, they went back to their birth country to study at the universities there. But yeah, you have to know the language. Well, for China, it's a propaganda and spy program. More generally, Asian nations are incredibly xenophobic when it comes to any form of immigration. Peking, Tsinghua, Tokyo, Seoul, they are all quite high on the list. But those schools don't give any real good advantages over top Western schools. For an American HS graduate, local universities are far better choices than those Asian schools unless they are weeaboos, Koribus, or Chinese spies.